So, are you buying less whiskey at the moment? Fewer bottles? Are you having to be more conscious of how much you spend on the bottles you do buy? Yeah, let's talk about that for a bit. There are a number of reasons why your favourite whiskey is more expensive than it was this time last year, maybe even 6 months ago. In the UK, we've had 10% inflation for a good amount of time now, and that has not only pushed up the price of a bottle of whiskey, but it's pushed up production costs too. So even if you're completely unaffected by UK inflation, those extra costs have got to be passed on to the customer somehow. We've also seen a complete shake-up of the tax rules here in the UK, which in the end will see an additional 10% added to the duty on a bottle of whiskey. Now, I would love to make a video all about the finer details of UK tax policy and alcohol duty, but I fear that might not be so interesting for you. Maybe another day, who knows. Then there is the whiskey boom, which sees demand outstrip supply, and retailers are taking advantage of that by pushing up the prices of whiskey, and producers are even taking advantage of that by pushing up their whiskey prices too, because they can see how popular whiskey has become. We also have a booming secondary market, which is adding and fueling this fire of inflation in the whiskey world. But that is a whole separate topic, and one that I'm definitely going to return to in the future, because there's so much to say about it and it is so interesting and has such a big impact on us as whiskey consumers. So in short, we're going to have to get used to paying more for the whiskey that we like. I've noticed it every time I go to a shelf to pick up my favourite bottle, particularly more premium bottles. The price is just ticking up every single time I go to replace it. The one that really hit me the hardest was GlenDronach 18. That was one of my absolute favourites. I bought that bottle back a few years ago now for around £80, and now they're asking for £120, £130 for it. And that's hard to stomach, especially when the recipes change and it's not the same as it was when I bought it a few years back. For me, it doesn't really represent value for money anymore, and as a result, I won't be buying any GlenDronach 18 anytime soon. And that's the case for a lot of 18-year-old whiskies. A lot of them have gone up in price, much more than the rate of inflation, and I've noticed it more in that sector of the market than perhaps in any other. I understand that there may be stock issues going on in the industry. There's a huge demand at the moment, and perhaps there's not enough stock to kind of placate that demand. But for us whiskey drinkers, it is tough when we could pick up our favourite 18-year-old bottles for under £100, and we're now going to have to pay a lot more for them. Now, probably the most high profile of all these 18-year-old bottles that have skyrocketed in price is Talisker 18. Here it is. This is the old bottling of it. This is the one they released before the prices were hiked. Around this time last year, you could pick up a bottle of Talisker 18 for about 80 British pounds, so $100 US. And I thought that was a very reasonable price for a well-regarded bottle of whiskey. I saw that it had been nominated for the Oswars last year for the best single malt of the year. And then I heard rumours of this price hike coming. Now, a part of me knows that I shouldn't have gone out and bought this bottle on the basis that I knew the price was going to rise. It's sort of rewarding Diageo for their pricing policies in a way, sort of showing them that demand is there. But I did want to try it before it went up, and I did want to get my hands on a bottle. Judge me if you wish, but that's the reasoning behind my decision. So now if you walked into a shop and you wanted to buy a bottle of Talisker 18, you would have to pay around £175. That's pretty much a £100 increase on last year's price. That's about $215 US. And nothing's changed. For all intents and purposes, the whiskey inside the bottle is exactly the same. It's not been made more premium for any reason whatsoever. The only difference you will notice is slightly different labelling, and ironically, I think the new labelling makes it look cheaper than the old labelling does. The strange kind of turquoisey, bright colours that a lot of whiskey brands are going for nowadays to help them pop out on a supermarket shelf. Which is ironic as well, because I don't think many people are going to be picking up a bottle of Talisker 18 with their sliced white loaf and tea bags. Not at £175 anyway. This is a case not of inflation, this is a case not of production costs rising, of companies, distilleries having to make ends meet and provide us with good whiskey. This is pure opportunism by Diageo, pumping up the price of a very popular brand of theirs because they know they can. And it's not good. It's not good practice, and it's no fun for us whiskey drinkers. So why should we keep drinking it? If they're going to do that, why should we keep drinking it? Are they going to sell bottles? Who's going to buy these bottles of 18-year-old whiskey at £175? There must be people out there. Diageo must have done their market research and found the people who want to buy whiskey at such a ridiculously inflated price. But for us, we're slightly more discerning, you and I. We know there are alternatives out there. We know we can get our hands on things that are just as good for half the price, maybe even less than half the price. And that's what we're going to talk about today, an alternative to Talisker 18 and whether it measures up or not, whether it tastes as good. So what is the alternative to Talisker 18? Is there a good one out there that we can buy instead of this overinflated product? Well, I don't think it's going to come as a surprise to many of you, if any of you, that I'm going to recommend Ledaig 18 instead. This is a product that is making waves at the moment across WhiskyTube, and with good reason, because it's very nice. And it provides you with an 18-year-old whiskey experience for £85, the exact same price that Talisker 18 used to be. So I think what we ought to do is compare them. Is this as good as Talisker 18? Isn't it? Is it worth the money? I think we should have a look. First of all, let's have a look at the original Talisker 18. Like I say, this is a bottling from last year sometime. I think I bought it in, I think it was January or February last year, 2023. 2022. So it's the old label, it's the old bottling, so it isn't necessarily going to be exactly the same as this year's batch. So this is 45.8%. Diageo and Talisker's classic little trolling of all us 46% lovers. I've never really understood why they present their whiskey at 45.8%. It seems a very odd number. It will be chill filtered. It will have colour added. Although it is quite pale and relatively tawny. They haven't gone overboard with it. But they clearly don't state that it's natural colour, and therefore you have to assume that maybe batch to batch they vary the amount of colour they put in to keep the product consistent. I think the big issue for me is that I really enjoy Talisker. I think it's a very unique malt. I think it's got great character, an incredible flavour, and I can't think of anything that is too like it. So on the nose, there's a toffee note there, and a sort of lemony note, lemon peel kind of rind note, a citrus kind of background, I suppose. The peat in it is very, very light. I mean, it's not imperceptible, but it really isn't dominating the nose in any way, shape or form. And then you get this sort of older stewed fruits, maybe dried fruits as well, sort of mixed in together. Very pleasant, actually. Very pleasant indeed. The more I nose it, the more I'm getting that citrusy note, actually. It kind of opens up a little bit. I've had this sat out for a little while, but okay, let's give it a try. It's interesting. You get a lot more peat on the palate than you do on the nose, which is often not the way round. But it's quite charry, ashy peat. It's not phenolic, really. It does feel quite charred wood smoke kind of peat. There is a sweetness, but it's quite savoury. There's a pepperiness there as well, and this kind of salinity too that runs through it, which I really like in whiskey. I'm a big fan of the salinity note, big in Bunnahabhain and Talisker 10 as well. All of Talisker's whiskies actually. And then there's this quite chewy, quite thick, oily mouthfeel as well, which also makes it very pleasant. When you add water to this, you get more of that pepperiness, and you do get more peat as well. It kind of opens up the peat element of it too, and you get a bit more smoke off it. Look, I have to say, it is a very nice whiskey, and there's not a lot I can do to get away from that. It's very, very tasty. So how does it compare then to the Ledaig 18-year-old? Let's try that. Now, in contrast to the Talisker, this one is natural colour, non-chill filtered, and it is presented at 46.3%. A very, very different nose. Very different nose, actually. There's a lot more peat coming off this, a lot more peat. It's much fruitier as well. There's a lot more fruit there. Different types of fruits, stewed fruits again, but more fruitiness, I would say. There's spice there as well, and more of the kind of sherry, phenolic kind of peat notes there. Yeah, more phenolics for sure than the Talisker 18. Let's have a try. Yeah, it's much more phenolic than the Talisker. It does have more peatiness on the palate and the nose. It's also much thinner on the mouthfeel, actually. It doesn't feel quite as thick and oily as the Talisker. That's not to say it is thin, but it does feel thinner than the Talisker. I opened this up a while ago and I've tried them together, the Talisker with the Ledaig. With each time I've tried it, the Ledaig has got better and better. It has opened up, I have to say, as I've opened the bottle, and it's just kind of opened up a little bit more. And they're getting closer and closer for me. It's still quite savoury. There's a little bit of heat, a bit more heat and spiciness with this on the palate. And then when you add water to it, you get this more kind of earthy vegetal note coming through. It's very, very nice. It's very good, yeah, it's good. So, for me, I have to say the Talisker does just edge it. There is something about Talisker for me that I do really like, and there is that salinity, that pepperiness that you get with Talisker that is their characteristics I really, really enjoy. And so on that basis, it probably does just edge it for me. But like I said, when I first tried these two together, I think the Talisker was quite a bit further ahead than the Ledaig. And I've actually scored the Talisker a whole point more in terms of flavour than the Ledaig. But now I'm not sure. That's the third time I've done that side-by-side comparison, and they're closer than they've ever been. So I think I'm actually going to give them the same score for flavour. So if we run through the Talisker, for flavour it's going to be a 7 out of 10. And like I say, I really enjoy it. I think it's great. Where the Talisker falls down is obviously through its presentation, its chill filtration, its use of colour, possibly. And as a result, I mean, it is a good percentage. I think 45.8% is negligible in terms of the difference between that and 46. Although I know that 46.3 is the magic point at which you don't get that so much Scotch mist with when you add water or ice and so on. But nevertheless, tasty. Why would you bother chill filtering something that's 45.8%? Don't know, Diageo can let us know. So, on that basis, it's a 2 on presentation out of 5. Then, in terms of value, well, I would give it a 0 if 0 was possible. Maybe I could make 0 a possibility, but my scale is 1 to 5, so it's going to be 1 on value, because there's no way something that was worth £85 last year could possibly be worth £175 this year. So it's 1. So then we look at the Ledaig. Well, in terms of presentation, it's ticking all those boxes. It's non-chill filtered, it's natural colour, it's presented at 46.3%. Has to get a 5 out of 5 for presentation. Then we look at value. At a time when most 18-year-olds are going up over £100, this is still below £100. It's around £85 a bottle. So compared to other 18-year-olds on the market, it has to be good value. It's 5 out of 5 for value. There'll be people out there who disagree. There'll be people out there for whom £85 for a bottle of any alcohol is an exorbitant price, and I completely understand that. I think that's very valid. But in the context of price hikes at the moment, in the context of other prices for 18-year-old whiskies in the market, I think £85 is 5 out of 5 value. And then for flavour, I was going to give it a 6, but actually I think it's gone up, it's crept up. I think it is a 7. And I came into this fully expecting to have to sort of make excuses for preferring the Talisker and sort of say, well, you know, it costs more, so actually really the better value is the Ledaig. But sitting here now and trying them again, side by side, I actually think the Ledaig is much closer to the Talisker. I think the Talisker does just still edge it. I do, and that is a personal preference thing perhaps, but this Ledaig is still absolutely fantastic. It's 7 out of 10. It is only going to get better with time as well in terms of what Tobermory Distillery do and how they progress their manufacturing process over time, their cask management and everything like that. That's it really. Thank you so much for watching. Please, if you enjoyed what I've said or enjoyed my presentation, then please give it a like. If you've really enjoyed it, then please do subscribe. As ever, love reading the comments, and if there's anything you want me to cover or anything you want to talk about, then let me know. If you've got a bottle of whiskey that you keep going back to that's rocketed in price and you want to talk about it in the comments below, please do. Let's find some more alternatives to some of our favourites. And you never know, I may be doing another video on that again in the future. So, hope you've had an enjoyable time. No, I'm gonna go for the Ledaig actually. Hope you've had an enjoyable time watching my video, and Slanchavar.